Before we get started on this weird Nintendo fanboy video, I want to give a shout out to Aisha Fan, Maz Rika, Rainbow Dortega, and Rents Rants because they're at the $10 premium tier, and you can become a patron of mine for only $1 or a YouTube member. But with that out of the way in this weird shill segment, let's go ahead and laugh at some Nintendo fanboys again.
Man, I love gaming on the go, from the handhelds to the consoles that won't get any real upgrade. But if only it could get worse. What if I could game on the go and be the worst kind of gamer out there?
Ah yes, those pesky PC gamers and their ability to play anything that they want to.
With the success of the Nintendo Switch, of course there was gonna be competition.
I don't know how many fanboys it'll take to convince, but the Steam Deck isn't a competitor to the Switch. It's literally just an accessory to play your Steam games on the go.
There was that Sony patent that went nowhere, and Valve decided, hey, we can actually make something.
You mean that thing they've been doing for years, you know, with like the Valve Index and those probably not so good Steam machines? I mean, they did have a Steam Link with the Steam controller, but I'm sure you have a lot to say about that coming up, don't you?
So this thing was announced not too long ago, and the fact that there are not only product images, but also pre-orders, it's just showing me that this thing is actually going to come to the market. The thing is, which market is it really for?
It can't be a competitor to something that it's not in the same market as. So if you're still asking what market it's for, and it's still going to be a competitor, then that means that they're not competitors, if that makes any sense. The Steam Deck is supposed to be for people that already own a PC that want to take their Steam games on the go. Or maybe they just want to have another computer that replace their laptop or something. It's not meant to be a competitor to the Switch, which only plays your little Mario Bing Bing Wahoo games.
Because while we do have the Nintendo Switch, let's be honest with ourselves, the market for the Switch is not the same as the market for the Steam Deck.
Then they can't be competitors then, because they're not in the same market.
Well, you can't slouch over in a grumbly voice and say it's for the gamer. You gotta remember that there are more types of gamers than there are flavors of ice cream.
While there are 30 different types of video games that exist in the world, there are also over 1,000 flavors of ice cream known to man. So I'm gonna press X to doubt.
For me, I'm an all-around gamer. I play what I like, and that happens to be on every f***ing console, Jesus Christ.
Now, in your comments, while you try to defend yourself from the swath of different dislikes from a lot of different people, I will have you know that in this picture, there are far more Nintendo consoles than there are anything else, but that's just kind of food for thought.
While I'm a big Nintendo nerd, I play a lot of games on the PC because, well, these games interest me. Idiot. Why else would I play games on the PC if they didn't interest me? Why would I buy them? You're asking stupid questions.
This joke has been done to death, but I'm gonna be one of the people to say it in a video. Why do you try to act like one of these people that are in this weird video game sphere? Like, if you look at Peanut Butter Gamer or ScottTheWasn't, they all have the same type of, energy, I guess is what you could say. And you're trying to do that, but the problem is that your delivery's terrible. I was gonna use the F word, but, you know, demonetization.
I'm probably the only person to walk into a bar with copies of Persona 5 and Clay Fighter on the N64. Scientists don't know how to describe me.
Who the hell walks into a bar with video games in their hands? Also, are we really trying to prop up Clay Fighter? Is that what we're doing in this video today?
So when I saw that this thing was being announced, you know, I gave a hard-earned shrug at that thing. I just don't see the appeal in it as much as a lot of other people do.
And that's perfectly fine. You don't have to see the same value that other people do, as long as it's something that you're either interested in or something that you're not interested in. I don't think anyone really cares, but it's the misinformation part that people care about.
The Switch works in my opinion because it's console gaming on the go. It's something that we all dreamt about, and now it's here. I can play Super Mario Galaxy with controls in my car. With PC gaming though, it's a bit different.
Well, how so? You just talked about how the Nintendo Switch is console gaming on the go, so PC gaming on the go is the Steam Deck. I'm not understanding the logic here of why people wouldn't be interested to take their Steam library wherever they go.
PC gaming is like really expensive food. It's there if you want it, but is it really gonna be miles better than a 4 for $4 at Wendy's? Some argues yes, others say no. People who own an iMac said, well, it's a Steam to me. So why do people play games on PC to begin with?
First of all, yes, the expensive food will probably be leaps and bounds better than your 4 for $4 at Wendy's. I mean, there's a lot of things that you could list off on one hand that are better than Wendy's, like Chick-fil-A or something like Whataburger. But it's still, up to your preference. If you don't want expensive food, then you don't have to get it. Alternatively, there's a lot of pros to PC gaming versus console gaming, such as the ability to customize your games however you want and be able to run emulators as freely as you want to, and also without paid online, but that's another argument for another day.
I can't speak for everybody, but for me, it's the controls. I like controlling my camera in-game with the mouse, and having the ability to fine-tune my graphics and frames per second is something I very much enjoy. Multiplayer online for PC doesn't cost anything extra, just own the game in your library and make sure your friends have it too. Games are more likely to go on sale, and if you purchase an indie game on PC, it's most likely to run better.
What if I told you that you can do all of that on the Steam Deck?
Now let's take all that and apply it to the Steam Deck. I don't think the same appeal is there.
Bro, all of the things that you just showed, including the Steam sales and the indie games, are all on Steam, which means that the Steam Deck will play all of them. And even when you use a dock to make sure that you can put it onto your monitor or your TV, it will still be able to play those games. What do you mean you don't see the appeal?
This hunk of electronics feels so awkward to look at, and imagine trying to play it. Valve is really bad at making controllers, like, really bad, and this is evident by the Steam controller.
The Steam controller was actually one of the best controllers that you could ever buy. And just looking on eBay, those controllers, in the rare instances, you can find them from about $50, but they could be more. Unless you can find some from someone else, but even then, it had really good touch controls, and it had a good layout for all of your games.
I wouldn't want my daughter going near this thing. It looks like it can spread leprosy.
No, it looks like it functions like a regular controller. I don't know why you're being facetious about this. Also, how are you going to say that when the Valve Index has controllers that are some of the best controllers you can have for a VR headset?
So of course, when seeing this image, I just can't help but exclaim a good why and how. I even printed out a picture to show my family, and they all contracted a rash just by looking at it. Oh, my eyes are itchy! Oh, how does that work? I just won't understand why Valve didn't take the route of the Wii U gamepad layout.
Wow, a Nintendo fanboy wants something to be more like Nintendo. How could I have ever forgotten?
While this thing is big and clunky, it feels good to play with in your hands. Here, it looks like I'll accidentally be pressing the X button with my thumbs every time I move the stick to the right. So much space is being taken up by these touchpads. I'm guessing this is going to be for games that require a mouse.
Like, I am easily able to reach everything from these thumb pads to the joysticks, the D-pad, and ABXY. I mean, if you're a retro gamer, if you want to play, emulated SNES games or anything like that, this is what you're going to be into. And ooh, the feeling is actually pretty good considering how early these units are.
But did they do this on the Steam controller? Yes. Did it really work out too well? No.
Actually, it worked really well. Ask anyone that's had a Steam controller. They will tell you that it works just as intended. It works great as a mouse, especially with the touch feedback that it gives you.
So why would they do it again? 'Cause they're fucking stupid!
Then why does Nintendo keep trying to sell you a console with no upgrades? Oh wow, it gave me an OLED screen. Now I can see the blacks even blacker and play games the same way.
There are just so many buttons on the back too, like R4 and R5. I couldn't tell you what these are for. Are they programmable? Seeing this makes me wonder if every game is going to be mapped the right way to this controller, or is it going to be something that you have to set up for each game?
Those buttons on the back are definitely programmable. You can map them to something that's in the game. And if it's not in the game, then you can just map it there on Steam. I'm still not understanding how having options is a bad thing.
This is where I see different markets coming into play. People who are used to PC gaming might not have no problem with this. Give it to a random Joe Schmo and see if they know how to map things to the B button.
Well, see, myself, I'm a boomer, and if I can't find the answer just from, testing it out, then I go online and then I look it up. There's probably a manual that comes with it, or it's just there digitally.
While the Switch is underpowered and the company that sells it is being a brat lately, it just really is meant to be picked up and played. I have no doubt in my mind that the Steam Deck will 100% require a Steam account, and that already puts off a bunch of people because they might not have one.
Well, no shit it requires a Steam account because you need a Steam account to even buy it anyways. And also, a Steam account is free. When you wrote this part, because I know you wrote a script for this, did you ever think, man, I don't think anyone's gonna buy a Nintendo Switch because then that means they have to make a Nintendo account. Or maybe they can't buy a PlayStation because then they need a PlayStation account. Did you think about that when you wrote this? I know it's a trick question, I know you didn't.
Also, let me ask you this, how many people actually know what a Steam is?
The largest online retailer for PC games in the entire world is not known to people? And also, why would they not know what Steam is? Unless you went to some weird third world country where they just magically don't have computers, then I'm pretty sure someone's either heard of Steam or they've seen the Steam logo somewhere on their favorite video game.
And how many of those people are above the age of 14?
That's irrelevant, and also, probably if I had to do a hardcore estimate, I would probably say around 80%.
Second off, there's no real way to pack in a title or anything, so they'll just have to buy a game at the Steam store, and that's not the easiest thing to roam around through.
Well, that's a stupid thing to say, seeing as there's games like Star Wars The Old Republic, Team Fortress 2, and even Warframe, which are free-to-play games. So what exactly would you need to pack in if those are already free? Also, you act like buying a game is some act of God when it probably only takes you like $5. And that's not even mentioning the fact that you probably already have a Steam library if you're buying a Steam Deck in the first place.
You ever try to find a new game that you haven't heard of before in the Steam shop?
Yeah, it's actually really easy. There's actually 2 sections that you can look at. One of them is your discovery queue, which shows you games that you have yet to discover, and also recommended new releases based on what you've been playing. So even then, it's still really easy.
Yeah, neither have I. It's really only the AAA titles half the time on the homepage, and
out of everything that's on this page, there's only 2 little boxes that have AAA games in them, and the other ones are all indie games or AA studios. So either you're trying to make this argument in bad faith or you're just this stupid.
I guess that's a selling point, but still. I've never found any of the games that I actually own on the homepage, aside from maybe GTA 5.
I wonder why this internet storefront won't show me games that I've already purchased and only shows me new games that I don't own. Must be a bad storefront.
So it begs the question, if this thing comes out and it actually does super well, will it convince Nintendo to finally make a Switch that has more power to it? Well, in the likely event that Nintendo looks out into the real world, chances are f***ing nope!
At least you've tempered your expectations and know that Nintendo doesn't care about your feelings. They don't care about any of that. They only care about your money, which every corporation does, but they get away with it because it has this little logo stuck on the back that says Nintendo.
We've seen the Switch OLED announcement, and it sucked! Many people have been desperately holding out hope for a new Nintendo Switch that is more powerful and has focus on docked gameplay, seeing as the Switch Lite had a focus on handheld gameplay. Well, Nintendo looked at all that hype and said, "F you! Here's a screen that's 0.8 inches bigger. Deal with it, asshole!"
Don't worry, guys. There's still hope for a Nintendo Switch Pro, just probably not as soon as you want it to be, and probably never. That's when it's gonna be, is just never.
While some of the changes were honestly great, it didn't warrant a new model. People wanted new hardware that can help developers port their games better and make them look better too. I don't want to play The Witcher when it looks like a sad sack of breadcrumbs.
Well, I'm happy to report that you can play The Witcher 3 on the Steam Deck and it'll actually look a lot better, but, you know, wishful thinking.
With the Steam Deck, it's clear that it's gonna have more power. I mean, it's competing with the Switch, and it was announced after everyone made a fuss about the OLED Switch. I mean, it turned heads. Everyone was talking about it. This thing is going to be able to play games that the Switch could never even run.
Well, to be fair, the Steam Deck's gonna be able to run more games than your Xbox Series X and your PS5, so I guess that's always a selling point too.
That's another thing. With this thing now being out, it's gonna do more than just play games that are on the PS5 and Xbox. It's gonna go beyond that. Like porn games!
Hey, Billy, you might want to keep it down. I don't want to hear about your porn addiction.
The GTA games, the Batman Arkham games, Dead Rising, Gary's Mod, Dead or Alive, all haven't been put onto the Switch yet, and they will most likely be available day one on the Steam Deck.
It's not most likely. They definitely will be on the Steam Deck day one. I mean, they're on Steam.
To be able to play any GTA game on the go is kind of mind-blowing.
Yeah, that would be kind of mind-blowing to play GTA on the go, except that we've always been able to. If you look at Vice City Stories, Liberty City Stories, and Chinatown Wars, including the iOS ports of San Andreas. So I guess you could say that it would be mind-blowing if you take those out of the equation.
I've been a believer that GTA 5 could come to the Switch, but with the Steam Deck, it might not have to. Not to mention, there are also older titles on the Steam store, like Sonic Adventure. I mean, there's just gonna be a lot of titles that are not going to be seen as released on the Switch. And if they are going to be released on the Switch after this thing comes out, then what's the selling point?
To say that those games will never come to the Switch is kind of foolish on my part, but they're never going to come to the Switch. And if they do, they'll look like The Witcher 3, and that just kind of looks like hot garbage.
I mean, a big thing about the Switch is that the portability is a selling point on getting these games. They may look like melting cheese that was left out in the sun, but hey, it's still a thing. You can play them on the go for probably the first time ever. Once this thing releases, the Switch will no longer have that selling point, as now there's another console that can do that same thing.
And that's good. We always want there to be competition. I mean, they're not really competitors, but I want there to be competition, and I want there to be options for the consumer. Because again, I'm pro-consumer more than I'm pro-corporation. So when the Steam Deck comes out, and we have that option of playing our Steam PC games on the go, then it'll be even better for people that want to use it as a PC, something that they can just hook up to their monitor and use mouse and keyboard on, rather than being restricted to maybe something like the Switch.
This was seen with the Wii U. Now, the lack of third-party support came from the fact that both the Xbox One and the PS4 were not only easier to develop for, but did better sales-wise. Now, the Switch, on the other hand, is doing fine on its own. I mean, the sales are just, they're fine. But that's not to say that when third-party games do come to the Switch that they look great. In fact, they look like a bag of potato chips that was crumbled up and crushed and was left out for 3 weeks before you ate it.
If there's one thing you got right in this video, it was definitely this part, so I have to give you props where props are due.
But who's to say that won't be the case for the Steam Deck?
Because the Steam Deck is literally an accessory to your already existing Steam library, or maybe your new Steam library. It's not meant to compete with any of those consoles. It's meant to be its own thing, a different way to take your games on the go. Not to make a whole new set of hardware that another company has to develop for, because it's a PC, and if they've already developed a game for the PC, then it'll run on the Steam Deck.
Putting a lot of power into a small device like this is not easy, so maybe when you do play GTA 5 on this thing, it looks like it would run on the PS2, or the PS1, or the Vectrex. My point is that the Steam Deck is most likely going to face the same issues as the Switch.
Then you must not have seen anything that came out the day that they talked about the Steam Deck. They literally showed Jedi Fallen Order being played on the Steam Deck, and it ran perfectly fine, and it didn't look like a hot pile of garbage.
But I do believe it will be more powerful. Seeing as this thing has to be a PC at heart, you can even dock it to use it as a desktop, there has to be an ability to customize your gaming experience.
Spoiler alert, there is.
You can sacrifice the frames per second for graphics and vice versa. On the Switch, you're kinda boned. Whatever the developers made the game optimized for is what you're gonna get, and that's just not fun. I don't want to play Kirby at 30 frames, damn it. Might as well just discontinue one of the 10 commandments while we're at it, because all that's good in the world is just gone now.
You know, not to gloat or anything, but you can run a Switch emulator on the Steam Deck and it'll play that game at like 60 frames per second. And probably at 1080p or 4K, you know, depending on where you're playing it at. But, you know, you have options, just saying.
I mean, when you really think about it, the Steam Deck is looking to be a great buy. Just hope that when you look at the prices, it doesn't hurt your already rashed up eyes. Ah, god damn it! How I'm wearing sunglasses! No! Ah! Ah!
What in the name of impossible to get Big Time Rush Revival concert tickets is this? So for the base model, you'll be paying $400. What does that get you? It gets you a console with much lower specs than the 2 other models.
They're not lower spec, it's just literally less storage. I don't know if you might know this or not, but usually phone companies like Apple will do this where they will sell you the exact same phone, except that they will probably give you less storage. So in the case of like maybe an iPhone 12, for example, you'll have the iPhone 12 Pro Max, but then you'll have the Pro Max with more storage, but all of the internals are the exact same. That's kind of what the Steam Deck is.
What? I know why this is here. It's to say that this thing goes on sale for $400, when in reality, if you want hardware that's not outdated, you're going to be paying $130 more just to have an SSD.
It's not outdated. Like, what do you think that they're putting into these Steam Decks? Do you think that they're just making one like an i3 Intel chip in that one, and then they're putting like the Intel i5s and i7s in the other ones? Like, what exactly do you think is happening in here?
In case you're unaware, SSDs are way faster than the standard hard drive and are preferred because they offer quicker load times. It's been a standard in the PC building market for a while, and heck, it's been put in the modern consoles. But fuck you, pay $530 just to have the privilege of one.
When it comes to eMMC storage, it's just a little bit slower than your standard SSD speed because of just, the different types of technology, but it's also supposed to be cost effective, which is why it's down at the lower price point, whereas the other ones are a little bit higher due to the SSD itself. But that's a lot of technical jargon that I know that you're not really here for, so allow me to say it like this. The Nintendo Switch uses the same eMMC storage that you're talking about and criticizing Steam for, while the price point is at $400, whereas the Nintendo Switch OLED has 64 gigabytes of the exact same eMMC, and it's $50 less. But you also have to remember that the Steam Deck will be able to play games at a much higher fidelity, and it's a whole ass PC. So I think I'd rather go with the Steam Deck than the OLED model any day of the week.
I feel like the prices are just not justified on any of the larger memory models. Who would pay $650 for this thing?
Well, I mean, just off the top of my head, I know I will, Griffin Gaming will, and Fratanga, they're all pretty much going to get that model. And even if they don't get the highest storage model, I mean, the $530 one is still acceptable, and I know a couple of my friends are going to get that, so I don't see what the big deal is. We don't tell you to not buy a Nintendo Switch or a Nintendo Switch Lite.
I know PCs aren't cheap, but it's experimental hardware that costs more than a PS5 at retail. Resellers, though, it's totally acceptable. It's a Switch competitor, yet it's $100 more at its lowest price.
But the Steam Deck is also unequivocally better than the Nintendo Switch in almost every facet. So the $400 price point is still better than any priced Nintendo Switch.
That's like boasting that you got good grades in school only for those grades to be C pluses and maybe 1B. There's so much hype going on around this thing, and yet I don't think it's gonna sell well at all.
You're not the first, and you're most certainly not the last person to say that.
I mean, let's be honest, people who own a Switch already have something to play these games on the go. They're not going to lug around another device with them. People who already game on a PC aren't gonna buy this thing because they already own a PC. Shocker, I know!
Well, I'm a PC gamer, and most of the people that I know are PC gamers, and they want a Steam Deck, and they want me to tell them how it is. Of course, when I get it. But also, why does that matter to you? If it's not for you, then don't worry about it. It's the same way that anti-tubers complain about anime, but it's not anime for them. They hate ecchi anime, but yet they still watch it. Curious.
They wouldn't even want to switch to this thing anyway because of the early set of arthritis they'll get after playing with these controllers.
Ergonomics of the handles of the controller itself, I think they've actually done a really outstanding job.
The casual market won't touch this thing because they don't even know what a Steam is.
Steam had approximately 120 million monthly active players in 2020. What in the world are you talking about?
I know you can do more than just Steam. You can install Windows 10 and get your beloved programs like Blender, Discord, and Internet Explorer, but unless you know what you're doing, it's not a system seller because nobody wants to jump through hoops just to do that kind of thing.
Without getting too technical, this runs on Linux, and Linux is really easy to install those applications. In case you forgot, Discord runs on Linux. All you have to do is go to the website and then just download Discord for Linux. That's it.
It could be a cool little emulation machine and help content creators capture game footage on the go, but like, $400 worth of that? Yeah, no thanks. I'd rather gamble it all on black at the casino that I'm not old enough to enter and lose it all. And yet somehow I would still feel like I got my money's worth.
You know, I usually would like to think that I put quips in every so often, but I really have just nothing for this. If you don't think it's good, then don't worry about it. Just play on your Nintendo Switch. This is not a threat to you. I promise, nothing will change tomorrow, or when this comes out in December, and your life will still be exactly the same.
I feel like the Steam Deck is just too late to the game. If this thing came out within a year of the Switch, then maybe it would be more interesting to look at, but in today's age, I see it as nothing more than a gimmick, a trend follower, something to compete with the Switch, but not really fully understanding why the Switch works to begin with.
And how does the Switch work to begin with? That it plays video game? And it doesn't really do it all that well because it uses outdated technology even by the year that it came out standards? I mean, I'm not really seeing what you're putting down here. I don't know what you're talking about. The Steam Deck isn't going to compete with the Nintendo Switch. It doesn't work that way. It is literally an accessory, not a console that's going to be, we need to sell this and move it into houses. They're already making this at a loss. So if anything, all the Steam sales and all the things that you buy from Steam, those are what's going to contribute to it getting more profit. Because, again, they make all of their money off of services. But again, the Steam Deck is interesting because it's a portable PC, and you can't even build a laptop that's going to be remotely close to that in price. And I think I'd be willing to take my chances, but then again, you know, who am I? Well, with that being said, I guess this is technically near the end of the video. But shout out to Aisha Fan, Mazrika, Raymond Ortega, and Rents Rants, and also to the rest of the patrons and also the YouTube members for your contributions. I know this has been really stressful, but don't worry, we at least got something out for you, but I'll let him go ahead and finish this up, I guess.
You know what? Hey, I think my eyesight's actually coming back. Oh, yeah, finally. And it's a close one, too. The doctor says if it would have been any worse, then I would have gone legally blind. I even have the papers to prove it. I mean, just look. Ah! No! No, not again!